9 things that don't make sense after 70. As we age, life changes in ways we never fully expect. Everything that felt so right back in our 20s, 30s, or even 50s begin to all of a sudden not feel right. For most people, reaching 70 is a big deal, but it means something different about the daily business of life. The routines, habits, and beliefs that once directed our lives often don't match up with the experience of aging. It is beyond simple bodily transformations. It's about adjusting how we perceive money, relationships, and what happens in the environment. Some things you thought were necessary suddenly become worthless. The larger problem is, in fact, that most cannot even see these changes before they experience them in their own homes. This can result to feeling disoriented, frustrated, and sometimes even disappointed. When you go through 70 years of life believing in some of these ideas, only around 10 of them benefit you. The confusion is real. You might ask why your once bustling social life seems less rewarding, or why your hard-won savings now somehow feel light. It's unsettling. You've spent years crafting your way of living, but some parts of it just do not feel right anymore. It's not a rare feeling, but it's not your fault. Research has shown that as people reach their 70s, the focus shifts dramatically. What used to matter to you means less now. The possessions that defined your sense of success, such as big houses or fancy cars, may not seem desirable anymore. Emotional and mental well-being becomes more valued than material wealth. If you don't see these shifts, you could lose years pursuing the wrong things. This can leave you feeling ill-equipped to deal with the same changes that accompany aging. The nice thing is that once you're aware of these patterns, you can prevent needless stress and choose more purposefully in the future. To bring you into focus, here are 9 particular things that simply make no sense at all after 70. These are not wild theories or groundless assertions. Instead, they are supported by studies, expert perspectives, and real-life case studies of people who have made these transitions. By recognizing these shifts sooner on, you are able to adjust, prioritize what matters, and live with informed peace of mind. 70 is also exactly the first point of senselessness after which material wealth is chased. In earlier decades, one was born with the desire to have the newest phone, a better car, or bigger house. But something odd takes place after 70. People in their 70s report that experiences and relationships give them much more joy than material possessions, according to research by Harvard's Adult Development Study. This change occurs because individuals begin to see that no amount of material wealth can purchase time or health. A common complaint among retirees is that they work too hard for things that now go unused. Cars get used less, big houses seem empty, and fancy gadgets go unused. Then one doesn't care for material wealth because one sees clearly that it is not as important as human relationships. And after 71 hasn't been interested in accumulating more wealth. The focus inevitably shifts to health, freedom, and relationships. But another thing that stops making sense is living in big multi-story houses. In your 30s, 40s, and 50s, you dream of that forever home with multiple bedrooms, ample living space, and sprawling backyards. But then after 70, practicality must take over. Large houses become a burden instead of a blessing. Daily challenges become maintenance, cleaning, and navigating stairs. A study conducted by the American Council on Aging found that 75% of people over 70 years old want to downsize or move into a single-level home. The reason is simple, that it is easier, safer, and more practical. Elderly persons are at greater risk of falls, and multi-level homes pose an even greater risk. When I was downsized to a less cramped environment, I was always relieved, having been less weight-bearing than possessions. The next item on the list is being in unhealthy relationships. As you are younger, you tend to accept certain behaviors and relationships because you are scared to be alone. But by the time you turn 70, you're even more caught up with peace preservation. Researchers have found that people in their 70s value emotional well-being more than they do social status or appearances. This is the age when you begin reconnecting with or finding new friendships, family ties, or relationships that do not drain you emotionally. A study from the University of Michigan found that 70-somethings who only maintained as many social relationships as felt meaningful to them reported greater happiness and life satisfaction than those of the same age who kept to toxic relationships out of obligation. The message is clear. You prioritize protecting your peace, and relationships that are no longer serving you make no sense. Once a person hits 70, spending on cool clothes and fashion falls off a cliff. In their 20s, 30s, and 40s, many people are able to keep up with fashion trends and are always swapping out their wardrobes for the newest fashions. They are convinced that dressing fashionably will improve their image or elevate their status. But after the age of 70, this cycle starts seeming not worth it. People are not so much drawn to the latest shiny things, but to what is useful. When selecting clothing, comfort, quality, and durability are of primary importance. Such a change is backed by consumer behavior research. Research also indicates that this group is half as likely to make impulse purchases in shops selling fashion items. Younger consumers can be influenced by fast fashion marketing or seasonal must-have collections. These people cannot. They value timeless, functional clothing, for example, useful for a common need. They make their buying decisions with greater intentionality and thoughtfulness. Instead of buying pieces every season that quickly go out of style, older adults are more likely to fill their closets with classics and versatile pieces that can last longer. To combat this, many elderly individuals wear the same trusted items over and over. Case studies show that they avoid new apparel altogether. Garments that are well-fitting, comfortable, and stand up to repeated washings without rending of threads are wardrobe staples. Some even hold on to sentimental pieces of clothing, like a favorite sweater or a well-loved jacket that brings back happy memories. That change in priorities isn't an abandonment of appearance. Rather, it reflects a deeper knowledge of what really matters. Older people see fashion trends as ephemeral at best and frivolous at worst, while quality and comfort offer more lasting dividends. This lens helps them to feel less pressure to buy things that would wind up going to waste, and so feel relief from what to wear since they can finally ignore the feeling of needing to keep up with current trends. 70 is also the age that eliminates the habit of seeking approval from others at all continually. In earliest stages of life, we tend to seek approval from bosses, friends, and even faceless onlookers online. People want assurance that they are doing well, looking good, or making the right choices. But that changes dramatically by the time people hit 70. They begin to realize the despair of one endless chase for approval. That energy once used to keep others happy or maintain a flawless image is now turned toward self-acceptance and inner peace. Psychological studies of aging and mental well-being support this shift. According to research conducted by the American Psychological Association, older adults scored higher in self-acceptance than their younger counterparts. As people age, they become more conscious of their blessings and their needs for improvement, and rather than trying to hide or fix these blessings in personality characteristics, they learn to embrace them. This peace brings harmony to others around you. At this stage of life, people know everyone has something they struggle with, and that perfection does not exist. This leads them to adopt a "take me as I am" attitude, where their self-esteem is based more on who they are than their place in society. Among the case studies of folks in their 70s, it turns out that many of them no longer feel any need to impress strangers or achieve the approval of coworkers or acquaintances they won't remember 5 minutes later. Instead, they become increasingly focused on their own happiness. This shift enables them to establish healthier limits and distance themselves from people or accomplices that strain their energy. By chasing approval, they reduce stress and enhance their emotional state. Speaking from experience, it started with the paradigm shift of other people's opinions don't pay my bills or contribute to my happiness. This wide perspective will strengthen a life with authenticity, dignity, and serenity of mind. Perhaps the biggest surprise, or the second biggest surprise, is the decision to stop working so hard. And while your 20s, 30s, and 40s are all about career achievements, that obsession with grinding often disappears with age. 70's a time when folks begin to reflect on how they spent their working years. Most regret not taking enough vacations, missing family get-togethers, and sacrificing their health for work. When researchers from the Journal of Aging and Health looked at retirees who clocked long hours in their careers, they found that 70% of them wished they'd made more time for leisure and family. This kind of reflection often results in a rearranging of what is of genuine value, and buying into fear-based media stops making sense too. As youth, we are prone to falling into the trap of sensationalized news stories that instill anxiety and fear. But by the time you reach 70, most of us have read enough world-ending headlines to realize that panic is often overblown. The older generation is more astute regarding the media's function, and they haven't been so affected by the fear agenda. As research on media consumption habits has shown, clickbait news or doom scrolling are less common for adults over 70 than they are for younger generations. Instead, they desire content that enhances, educates, or entertains. Planning too much for the future also becomes less attractive. Financial planning is important at any age, but people in their 70s often recognize that perfect control is just that, an illusion. Retirement planners and financial advisors often observe that those over 70 grow more tolerant of uncertainty. They learn to be in the present and not micromanaging every aspect of their finances. Such a shift tends to lead to more happiness. A financial case study showed retirees who adopted a more flexible type of spending plan had greater life satisfaction than those who strictly adhered to strict budgets. The instinct for proving yourself eventually wears off. That in younger days, people need to prove they're intelligent, competent, or successful. But by 70, the desire to impress others declines. People in their 70s are increasingly self-possessed, less focused on competition and more focused on their own joy. Developmental psychology studies show that there is a mental development after 60 or 70, a mindset transition known as ego integrity. This is a phase when people review life with a sense of fulfillment rather than seeking outside gratification. These 9 shifts aren't just theories. They reflect true, well-documented transformations that accompany aging. And acknowledging them can help you stop spending too much time, energy, and resources on things that don't matter anymore. When you're aware of these changes, you can navigate your 70s with skill, insight, and serenity. Rather than lost and confused, you will feel prepared and in control. The sooner you come to terms with these truths, the better your later years will be. So whether you're on the verge of 70 or just preparing for it, knowing what is in store can make a difference for your happiness and well-being.